All right, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to Simply Cyber Firesides. I'm your host, Dr. Gerald Auger, and every week we are bringing cyber industry professionals onto the show to engage with the hashtag TeamSC Simply Cyber community. And today we've got a banger for you. We have cybersecurity expert who's truly making waves in the industry. I'm talking about none other than the Cyber Yeti himself, Dr. Josh Stroschein, a renowned malware analyst and reverse engineer with a passion for sharing his knowledge. Josh is a reverse engineer at Google's Chronicles, I believe still, according to his LinkedIn profile, where he's tackling the latest threats head on. He's also an accomplished trainer, author, educator, Ph.D. holder. He's training people in all sorts of different facets and ways. So whether you like to consume it live with him, instructor-led, asynchronous in coursework, perhaps you like to read his work, or watch him on a YouTube video, his expertise is shared through these different mediums. And he has spoken at conferences like, I don't know, you may have heard of BlackHat, DEFCON, TourCon, just kind of the run-of-the-mill cons, right? No, this guy is delivering at the highest stages, the amazing content. And I'm very, very pleased to share that Josh is a close personal friend of mine. We've been friends for probably 10 years. He's a wonderful person, such a good instructor, such a good educator and communicator that at one point I literally was a TA for his course simply so I could be in the room with him while he was teaching it and consume that knowledge. I still to this day am grateful that he extended me the opportunity to work for him. Today, we're going to be diving into the fascinating world of reverse engineering from a cyber perspective, of course. Josh will be guiding us through real-world examples, and you want to stick around, people, because he's going to be doing live demos on some of his techniques in different areas. I think he's going to be ripping apart a .NET-based piece of malware live on stream. So get your popcorn, get your seat all cozy, get your Michael Jackson memes going, because you're going to really, really enjoy this, believe me. And remember, this isn't just a boring lecture. This isn't your dad's webinar. We're not running this on WebEx, right? We want to hear from you. This is live on YouTube. Let's get busy. So feel free to ask questions, share your thoughts, or even challenge Josh and his insights. Although I would say if you're going to challenge Josh, you may want to be careful. Not only is he incredibly brilliant, he's also like 6'8", and like built like a, sequoia. So, choose your own adventure. I would stand next to him, not blocking him. Okay. All right, y'all. So let's get this cyber fireside started. Get your Oprah emotes together and let's collectively welcome my friend and our guest today, Dr. Josh Stroschein. What's up, Josh? How are you, buddy?
Hey, Jerry, that was one hell of an introduction. I don't know if I've ever had anything to match it, and I don't know if I ever will. So thank you for that. It's
my pleasure. I mean, did I say anything that was untrue? I'll answer for you. The answer is no. That was all true. No. Well earned, well deserved, my friend Josh.
Yeah. No, I guess maybe my LinkedIn is out of date. I started at Chronicle. I'm with the Flare team at Google now. Google acquired Mandiant a couple of years ago. So with a team of impressively talented people, it is quite humbling and I guess keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, 100%. So Josh, you identify as a reverse engineer, but you do a lot of malware analysis as well. Are those would those two things be kind of one and the same in your opinion, or is there key distinctions between reversing and malware analysis?
Yeah, that question comes up quite a bit. And I've always had an approach and sort of a philosophy that malware analysis oftentimes requires reverse engineering or leads to reverse engineering, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive. There's a lot of things that you can do as a malware analyst that does not require reverse engineering. And I kind of always has used the practical malware analysis, PMA, as my guidepost. PMA was written at a time when PE files were, usually the thing that was delivered. There wasn't this extensive chain that we deal with today. And so getting into, analyzing Windows files requires oftentimes a lot of reversing. But there's all the stuff that happens before that. So no, I wouldn't say they're necessarily that tightly coupled. But a lot of times, I think if you're on a career trajectory, you are enjoying the malware analysis, it oftentimes will lead to reversing. And reversing will certainly help your skills. It'll help your understanding of whatever you're tackling. It could just get time consuming, right? If you're getting into a binary, say with IDAPRO, now you're looking at disassembly, maybe you've got the decompiler. All of a sudden the time commitment can get pretty extensive in terms of how much you're going to have to spend analyzing it, and maybe the trade-off and what you recover isn't worth it. So I kind of look at reversing in a lot of situations as a last resort for a lot of people. If you can get results from a sandbox, or there's other easier methods to get the data you're after, do that. I work for a team though that the reversing is necessary. Like, it's already gone through a layer of that triage analysis, or an incident responder has taken a look at it. They don't have the time or the skills. And so that's all we focus on, is getting artifacts and tearing them apart to understand either how they work, or to achieve the objectives of whatever was requested from us.
Yeah, 100%. And Josh mentioned PMA, just so those who are in chat don't know this, that he's referring to Sikorsky's and Honig's practical malware analysis, often referred to as Sikorsky's. This book is, I think, when was this book printed? 2012?
Yeah, right around there. It's 10, 11 years old now.
Yeah, it's old, but it's still considered the seminal book on this topic. So if you're even remotely interested in exploring malware analysis, I would definitely check out this book. I feel like it's one of those ones that's in everybody's bookshelf that kind of works in the industry.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of questions coming in here. Obviously I love having chat take over the questions. Casually Joseph, who he said a minute ago, referring to Josh, the Cyber Yeti. Josh, I don't know if you recognize Joseph's name from chat, but you are one of his all-time faves. I think, maybe Gerald Auger comes in a close second. I don't know. I doubt it, right? But he said he's learned a good bit from you, even though it looks like magic 75% of the time. He's got a follow-up question for you. How closely do you work with detection engineers? I assume very closely, but want to know more. Detection engineers, for those who are unaware of that role, these are the people who are updating EDRs and SIMs and such to be able to detect bad instead of having to go threat hunting for it. So what's that like, Josh?
Yeah, so this might be surprising, but very little. So when I started at Chronicle, if you're not familiar with Chronicle is a SIM SOAR platform. I think I still get the technology and the acronyms a little confused. But there I was doing a lot more working with detection engineering, even creating some detections myself based off of the reversing activities I was doing in some of the analysis. Primarily Yara-L. Yeah, you can go check out the documentation if you're interested. It's like a Yara-like syntax, but you can apply it to your normalized and aggregated log data. Moving over to Flare, our number one output is reports, technical reports, and then recovery of IOCs, and that's to serve oftentimes active incident response. Beyond that, we do a lot of research and tool building to help with our workflow. So I find myself right now not creating a lot of Yara. Although I have created a detections course under Flare and Google. You can actually check it out. It's at Suricon. We're going to be debuting the course with a colleague from VirusTotal. Also, another little known fact: VirusTotal is owned by Google, but well public. There's no trade secret there. But we're debuting it at Suricon. So it's a 2-day course. We're going to cover Yara. We're going to cover Suricata. So, files and other things that are static, Suricata for the network, and then a little bit of Sigma for your logs.
All right. So really quick, just, casually dropping that you're doing this. So this is it right here. This is Suricon. Josh has been heavily involved with Suricata, at least in the past, and we could talk about that if you want. Is this an in-person or is this a virtual event?
It is in person. They had to really twist my arm to go all the way to Madrid, Spain.
You poor man.
It's just such a terrible thing. But it is in person. Not to get into all of the ins and outs of Suricata and the Suricon conference, but they usually go back and forth between Europe and North America. So this year happens to be in Europe. And because we're covering a bit of Suricata in rule comprehension, I think is important, and then rule writing, custom rule writing, or rule modification. So that's sort of the focus of it. And then we're going to underpin it with malware analysis. So how do we analyze the different artifacts that we see to understand the different life cycle, where we can capture events that are important, what they mean, Like if you get an office stock or gosh, I don't even know what's the kind of in thing right now for malware delivery. But the first thing at the chain may not be as important as the last thing, right? And so the context can help you understand sort of where you're at there and where you maybe want to spend your time writing your rules.
Seems a lot of like HDA files and like somehow like LNJs and ISO. Like I don't even know how ISOs detonate, but anyways, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I saw something with an ISO, just like an archive. Open it up, read me, click this thing.
Yeah.
Scripts run, malware gets downloaded.
And off it goes. So if you are going to, I mean, this would be not the easiest thing, but if you are going to be interested in getting this training, which is super sick, there is, a training fee associated with it, and you would have to get to Madrid, Spain, and it is in 3 weeks. So you got to move quick on this.
You got to move quick, yeah.
Josh, I know I see some people in chat saying that they love this training and would love to take this training. Do you have any plans to have this training at any other point or any other location?
Yeah, so just on the price, OISF runs Suricata. Suricata's open source and OISF is nonprofit. So it all goes to support nonprofit project. We offered, so my colleague Pancho, we offered a very, very scaled down version of this at DEF CON as a workshop this summer and plan to do similar this year. Maybe we will be able to, I can't say any venues because I don't have any confirmations, but we're definitely trying to get some more public trainings. There's a strategy behind where in the world we're trying to get them, and not just because I like to travel and locations, like a BlackHat or something around that time, and those would be great because there's a lot of people that are already going there. Outside of that, I don't know. It's still new. We're trying to get the first course out the door here, delivered, and see how it goes. See what kind of feedback we get from the community.
Yeah. So what I would say is to everybody in chat. It sounds like Josh has an interest in this training, not just being a one shot. So what I would recommend is follow Josh on Twitter, right? Because you weren't part of the Mandiant. I mean, oh my God. Remember when Twitter got bought and then like everybody moved to, what was it called? Is it Maelstrom or?
Mastodon.
Yeah. And then
I think they're Mastodon, right?
Yeah, a bunch of people came back because they're like, "Oh, Mastodon's not good." Like, so you're active on Twitter?
I never left.
Okay.
The thought of going to another platform and trying to rebuild any sort of a community and I don't like followership, but I guess that's what we call it. It just was too daunting. Like it's taken me forever just to get where I'm at on Twitter. I'm just not interested in leaving.
Yep. Dude, you're preaching to the choir. I did the Mastodon just to, get on it. Like, do you remember how, I don't know if you did this. Do you remember how like when Instagram released Threads and like everybody was like, gotta get on Threads. And then like you go back and look, I've done some OSINT on people with Threads. Like the number of accounts I see with one post cracks me up. It's like, like just some post and then they never used it again.
Yeah. I've played around with other social media platforms, but I have just found LinkedIn, Twitter, and then the YouTube channel are about as good as it gets. I post to Facebook, but I think that's a void for me. I don't have a followership there, and I haven't tried to cultivate anything. So for those few people that are following on Facebook, thank you. I appreciate that. But it's not something I spend a lot of effort on.
Yeah, I see all your questions in chat coming in. We're definitely going to go get those. I do want to point out, because Josh just mentioned it, this is Josh's YouTube channel. It is Dr. Josh Stroschein, the Cyber Yeti, at J Stro, or J Strosh. Like we call him J Stro, but here's his YouTube channel. Go check that out as well. Cyber Yeti, he's always doing, would you say it's mostly reversing and malware analysis on this channel?
Yeah, that's the focus. That's the niche I find myself in. Every once in a while, I might dabble in other topics, a little bit of exploitation stuff, but I'm not an exploit writer or developer. I taught it at one point in time, and I think there's some fundamentals and mechanics that are interesting and fun, and of course, very related to reverse engineering. Doing a lot more live streams, much like you, and so I might find topics and guests that are outside of that realm. For example, and I like network stuff. So I have like some Suricata content and things along that. For example, the Doug Burks, the creator of Security Onion, he's going to join the stream tomorrow. So we're going to talk about Security Onion, and that's always fun because it's not something like I find the network an important part of my flow. I use it for malware analysis. Sometimes you can get very discrete signals out of the traffic, but it's not universal. Like I meet a lot of malware analysts and REs that don't rely that heavily on the network, and so I just think maybe they're missing something that could help improve their workflow.
Do you have a stream schedule? Like you said, you're streaming tomorrow. I mean, do you stream
Yeah.
Fridays at noon or something? Or
No, I am right now flowing by the whims of the guest and then my own schedule. And so I'm
okay.
just sort of picking spots where I can find them.
You're spicy. Okay, just
Yeah.
we'll do it live. Okay.
So
Okay.
I haven't been able to get
It seems
very
very un-Josh like to
very, very consistent. But I'll send you a link. I do have again, also I'm modeling the Simply Cyber here, and I just have a Google Calendar that I've been.
Oh, this is wonderful, guys! Wait until you get a kick out of this thing. I love it. Oh, hold on.
Oh yeah, come on, sign up.
Yeah, I will. Here, I'll do it. Hold on. Hold on. I don't want the community to see my name and email. It's like, unless you, long time, dude, we have this guy in the community named Charles Finfrock. He's ex-CIA, and he comes on from time to time and does demos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The number of times he's like shared his screen and had like my personal information on it. And it, like, he's not reckless, but he just doesn't care. All right, so let's look at this really quickly. If you go to the cyberyeti.com, oh, that's cool. You got the domain name. You could see Josh has got his live stream schedule, his community. I might talk about borrowing something, Josh. I might steal this. This is nice and clean looking. You can see his schedule and his calendar events, all his links here. It makes me embarrassed for my website being overcomplicated for no reason.
No, this I spent the first 12 years of my life, my career, I should say, doing web development. I can't stand it now. So I went to Simply Cyber. I said, what does Jerry use for his hosting? Oh, Wix. All right, I'm going to go to Wix. I set up a Wix account. And then one night I forced myself to hack together this site. And this is where it's at. So
I love it. Well,
I'm gonna improve it someday. I just finally got some stickers and kind of the logo and that's been a process of just trying to get that stuff created. And so maybe you'll see, like in the YouTube channel and some of the social media, there's more of a consistency with the brand. So, but the website is on the list of things to tackle at some point in time.
I love it. Well, it's good. And, as an old, we have this thing in our community, the olds, which is me, and then the youngs, which is like Casually Joseph and Justin Gold. Like, anyone that was born like after, I don't know, 2000, they won't know the glory of Hercules monochrome, like this green on black, right? Mm-hmm. This is like Commodore 64. We live this, Josh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I figure it's just kind of my go-to. And until I have a consistent reason with the colors I'm choosing, it's going to have to do.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay. So Josh has been sharing all these things. You guys have been asking a million questions, and I'm just hogging Josh. So let me stop being piggy and start being more of a facilitator. So Josh, Kavian says they've been wanting to analyze files for potential malware found in emails at their organization, but they run in. How do they safely get the suspicious attachment onto the computer safely? I think, how do they move it from, the wild, if you will, to a workstation to analyze it?
Well, the standard approach is to get it into an archive and put a password on it. So I think that's the easiest thing you can do. If it's already on a host or some system, zip it up in a zip file, put a password on it. Be consistent in your passwords, though, so that you don't forget as you're sharing them internally or with your team. And then they should be good because you not only want to avoid accidental infection of other systems by it executing somewhere, but you don't want any sort of AV product or anything else to pick it up. And you'll find, I know you may have noticed this, anyone who's out there consuming or like trying to download malware for their own personal, either research or maybe for professional research. But a lot of platforms, a lot of browsers are getting really aggressive, cracking into zips and scanning the content. And so you'll see it's kind of a running joke in a lot of places that host malware. What is the password? Well, typically it's infected, all lowercase, all just standard, alphabetic characters. Yeah, there are a lot of platforms that know that, and they'll crack those zips, scan the contents, and block your download, which is really annoying. So yeah, but pick a password that works. Infected should be fine, but just something that works for your company. And I'd say that's the easiest and usually the most straightforward thing to do.
Code Ninja looks like they're from your channel. Where's the legendary beard? I mean, I'm not sure what you're talking about. That beard right there is pretty fierce. Do you have like a more legendary beard?
Well, I don't know. I guess when I retired, I retired from the military, National Guard a couple of years ago. I went a year and a half without shaving. So I mean, it got to the point where if I did this, it would kind of like stick out the bottom. But I didn't trim or anything. I was just a wild mess, which is kind of part of where the Cyber Yeti thing got born. And so at one point though, I did decide to just, I went from beard to nothing in one night. And now I've just kind of been in between different phases. Yeah, I guess it's been more fierce, but this is as long as it's been since then.
All right, I like it. Scash ML wants to know, they want to practice reversing, but they don't want to mess around with these boring PE files. I mean, honestly, that's where the money is.
Yeah.
What do you say, Josh? How can we get some practice without doing, I guess, Windows executables?
Well, you got to go. You just look at the PE file format and tell it it's not boring to you anymore, and you love it and get excited about it. I've got a whole playlist where I just try to talk about everything that's practical about PE file and what you need to know to reverse those. I would definitely agree. That's where the money's at. I would say, the bulk of what I see on a regular basis, both inside and outside of work, is PE files, because the world still runs on Windows, for better or for worse. So that's a good reason, and that's a reason why a lot of the content I create is focused on Windows and PE files, because it's just it's going to be the highest volume that's going to help you with the most likely places that are looking to hire malware analysts, reverse engineers. If you're not into that, well, there's other platforms you could specialize, right? iOS or just the whole Mac ecosystem. There's Android. There's all the stuff we talked a little bit about it earlier here. Just the whole chain of events that leads to oftentimes PE files. Like oftentimes at the end of whatever a malware or a threat actor or whatever the group is wants to deliver as a PE file. But then there's all sorts of wild things in between. Maybe it's Office documents. For a while, a long time ago, it was exploit kits. Those are actually kind of fun. There's scripting languages. Maybe there's .NET. There's ISO files. So you could try to find the artifacts that come before the PE file. Malware traffic analysis, Brad Duncan's website, he does a great job and has for years of trying to collect those entire chains, so that if you want to get different artifacts there, you can. So I guess
this site right here is what he's referring to, and I'll drop a link in chat.
Yeah, and Brad, this is kind of funny. He was the person I was thinking of when I was talking about the passwords, because he all of the downloads from his site go through predominantly go through browsers, and so he was having a ton of trouble. So if you go to download anything, he's got a slightly more elaborate process as to the password generation. So you got to do a little bit of reading there. It's on his about page, but if you clicked on like 2024 and just looked at some of the stuff he's posted, he has a setup to capture these artifacts, and usually he gets full chains where it's whatever the initial delivery vector was, a phishing email or something. I'm not entirely sure where he catches all of it. Probably maybe some Google Ads stuff, and then a lot of times that there's going to be internet access. He's going to have to go out somewhere on the internet and download that next stage. And you can find that if you're behind the curve on getting those, like those stages go down or they get blocked, and so you don't get the full sequence of events. So he does a really great job with that. So those are usually fun. You've got the PCAP with all of the data there. You've typically got the artifacts, the original emails, maybe the scripts or the maldocs that started, and then all the stuff that happens in between. So it can really allow for, I think, some cool, like I looked at something the other day where it was a downloader, .NET downloader, and the payload that it downloaded was encrypted. And because he provided both the original downloader binary and the PCAP file, you could go back and actually get that next stage payload decrypted out of the PCAP, and you could continue your analysis to get to whatever the final stage thing was.
That's awesome. Yeah. So there you go, Scatcho ML. Hopefully that answers your question. And
Yeah.
Josh basically skimmed over this, but I want to bring it back really quickly. Josh has a playlist on his YouTube channel that's absolutely free for anybody to look at about, I mean, this is like 15 videos on exploring the PE files. And so everyone knows PE is a acronym for portable executable, which is basically just a Windows binary, whether it's an exe or a DLL, it is the same file format, and that's what PE is. Just so we have the same terminology.
Mhm.
And this is a great resource, Josh. I mean, wow, very, 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 very thorough, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah, I guess I would think the years of teaching kind of got me into this rhythm of I really first started sharing content on the first video I ever uploaded was because of a class I was taking, and the instructor wanted us to do some demo of something, and so I uploaded a file, a video, and I started getting people subscribing to it, even though it was a crappy video, a crappy video. I think it was like Gray Hat Python or something, and then as I got into teaching, it just was a great way to share content with students. And especially as I taught over the years, I'd have students come into maybe say a higher level class. I taught in an assembly course, but now I'm teaching, which was a 300 level. Now I'm teaching the RE course. It's a 400 level or a graduate or a doctorate. And they'll come and ask, hey, I need an assembly refresher. So I just left all the videos up on YouTube so that they could go and get access to those. And now anytime I do something, I'm always thinking, should this be a video? Probably should. If anything else, it's so that I can remember and go back and watch it myself. But a lot of times, these are the results of the videos are just, I'm working on something. I ran into something in some malware, and it's just important to understand this. So
You're a man after my heart, Josh. Literally, I should have a shirt made that says I have a video for that, right? I have like 1,500 videos on the channel, and normally when someone asks me a question, I can say I have a video for that. It sounds like you get a lot of that economies of scale with your channel.
Yeah, I try to. I just don't get the viewers yet. It's a slow grow.
Well, if you're not subscribed to Josh right now, go to Cyber Yeti on YouTube. He's amazing, right? I don't know if you've noticed, Josh, but GRC is kind of coming around as a pretty hot area, right? Mm-hmm. So I just want you to know that if you're into malware reverse engineering, Josh is absolutely the number one YouTuber to go for comprehensive coverage. Toasty Pops out of the Kansas City contingent. He's our local Kansas City Simply Cyber ambassador. Does attestation matter? Does it even matter if you can trace infection to a threat actor group?
I don't do it at all. In fact, it's not important to me. Usually the work I'm doing is to I have a piece of malware or some binary or some artifact in front of me because there's obfuscation, there's anti-analysis, there's just complexities that need to be unraveled to understand what it's doing, and any sort of indicators that we can pull out. Probably no surprise, Google and Mandiant, now the two have very large intel teams, right? And so we have teams that deal with attribution and all of that, and so they are often customers looking for that sort of reversing help. And I leave it up to them. My personal work, I still like to scour the internet looking for malware, and a lot of it I upload to the Malware Bazaar on abuse.ch. That's, I feel like, part of my contribution to the community, because the community is where I found all of my resources to help get started with malware and reversing. I don't try for attribution there either. I mean, if I can figure out what the malware is by broad family, or maybe specific family, if it's a redline stealer or some of the stuff that's popular and sort of commoditized, I'm happy with that. But that's usually as far as I would take it.
Mohammed wants to know what do you see currently? Because I'm sure it changes with time. What's a common way that malware is being delivered? What are you seeing out there in industry?
Yeah, I don't, again, we're kind of at the end of the chain. So I don't really get involved in a lot of the full scope of how it's getting there. Before I came to Google, when I was teaching, we had nothing in academia that really helped with that. You're talking about the InfoSec Twitter, which was really alive and well for many years there. That was the kind of places I would go to see what was going on. I think the group Cryptolamus and Well, they were the group that was tracking Emotet and helping with ultimately, I suppose, the takedown of them. They still post a lot of information, much like Brad does, and so
Mhm.
usually that's where, if I'm curious what's going on, what are the chains I'm seeing, that's where I'm looking. Of course, if I had privy to anything inside Google, I probably couldn't talk about it anyway.
Yeah,
So,
no.
I think ads are a problem. I imagine there's still a fair amount of maldocs that are being passed around. Um, Scripts seem to be, some sort of a wild script that's attached to an email or someplace that folks download. So I'm not 100% sure at this point.
Love it. So, thank you for the question, Mohammed. So,
Mhm.
Josh, I know you've got a .NET, get filthy dirty demo. Why don't you pull that up? And while you're pulling it up, I'll just ask you a question so you can answer and respond to it while you're getting the demo up. This is a great question. Soul Reaper wants to know: do you ever use cloud services for your analysis versus a physical lab? Are there pros and cons between doing it local versus in the cloud?
Yeah. So I learned early in my career of developing that the answer to most IT and software development related questions is it depends. And so, yeah, it depends. I definitely have I'd say pretty standard setup, like most that do this kind of work in cybersecurity. My VMs that I like to work out of, I use a lot of virtual infrastructure for that. I have a physical system every now and again if that I might need to utilize. For my personal, if I'm out there, I get fascinated with open directories a few years ago. I have a tool on GitHub that I created while I was at HP that is designed to crawl the internet, find those open directories, and then harvest and identify and try to classify, actually using things like Yara. And I've been surprised over the years. In fact, if you go to the Malware Bazaar and you look up, yeah, there it's on there somewhere. Subcrawl is,
There you go.
yeah, yeah, and so it
Oh, hold on. Infographic. Oh, I have like an unhealthy attraction to good infographics, Josh.
well, I don't know if it's a good one, but it describes the system and what we were trying to make there. A colleague at the time was helping with the development, and we were able to present it at the BlackHat Arsenal. So that was my first actual BlackHat Arsenal tool.
Oh, I love it.
But the idea was just that I was manually finding all these open directories, and I was finding a lot of cool stuff. Zip archives of phishing kits and zip archives of panels, and sometimes you'll come across a directory, and the threat actor will have dozens or not, if not hundreds of binaries there ready to go for whatever activities, campaigns, or whatever they're up to. And so I wanted to automate that, and not just automate finding them and doing the crawling, but then also downloading those payloads, figuring out what the file types are. I integrate this with WCH, the URL house, and Malware Bazaar, so it checks to see if they're already there, and if they are, it pulls back the common signature to tell me if it's already been identified as a particular family. If it's not there, then I upload it to the Malware Bazaar. So most of the samples I've shared come from this crawling technique.
Yeah.
So it works out pretty well. But anyways, the question was the automation. And so a lot of that time, if I find something that's not known or not been reported on, yeah, I might just grab it, throw it in triage or any run or some sandbox, just get the results. I don't do any more analysis than that. That can be really helpful because you don't always need to crack into tools and look at the code. Sometimes you just need to run it, let the behaviors and maybe identification from later stages and network activity and just the stuff that it admits. Let a tool like a sandbox help detect that for you. So yeah, it all kind of depends on what I'm after. But
I love it, dude. Thanks. You're gonna have to share your screen to be able to do the demo.
oh yeah,
While
I'm
you're
ready.
pulling that up, Tyler Ramsby with a super chat. Tyler,
did we just become best friends? Yep.
right? Awesome stuff, Josh. He loves what you're doing. Tyler is a he's a professional pen tester and very good at it. Also lives in South Dakota. He's always repping South Dakota in his 2002 Volvo. So just giving a little love to you and to the community. Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah. Wow.
All right, let's get you up here. What are we looking at, Josh?
Okay. So
We make it bigger. Yeah, there we go.
yeah, this looks good. I got it zoomed in, so hopefully fonts and everything aren't too crazy here. Yeah, this is a Flare VM. I always like to promote the Flare VM. If you are not familiar, maybe you're familiar with Kali, maybe you're familiar with Remnix. It's an attempt to make a similar distro, but using Windows, which is of course the challenge. So it's a script that runs. It takes a little bit of time if you get the full profile and all the tools, but it really does help to automate building this VM for reversing and malware analysis activity. So check it out. It's on GitHub. It's a Mandiant Flare project. The samples, I just went, I don't know if I've got my browser open. Yeah, so here's the Malware Bazaar. If you haven't seen the Malware Bazaar, also, it's an awesome project. It's ran by a random Swiss guy who's no longer random to me, but it is like the work of one person. And the Bazaar is just their way of providing different artifacts, right? A lot of it's PE files. The question came up earlier, like what could I do besides PE files? Well, I guess you could go to the Bazaar and here's your types. You could try to find something that's not an EXE or a DLL. That might be interesting to try to reverse. But anyways, just different contributions from the community. So I grabbed a couple of samples. Let's see if I can find my profile here. Rocking the Futurama. It's back apparently for the 5th time. So you can see, I don't know, I have a certain affinity. It's irrational for things that I've discovered and contributed. So I just went through here. Part of what I upload is you can add tags. And so I try to specifically call out anything that's .NET binaries. And I have a course that's launching on Pluralsight here, hopefully within the next few days. It's going to cover .NET, and it's part of a greater skills path that I've been working on with them.
What? Hold on. Well, okay, if we're going to be doing that really quickly, I'll share this. This is the course you're talking about?
That's all of them. Yep.
So which one are you dropping? Or is
it's not there yet? No, I have a few tweaks to make on some content, but then it'll hopefully be there.
All right. Well, I'll drop a link in chat for this so you guys can check that out after the stream. Go ahead.
Yeah. Jeff. Yeah. So anyways, I mainly wanted to show this in like the reason that I like platforms like this and I like to contribute to them is because there's no paywall. You can freely contribute, you can freely consume here. And so this is a great place for research. This is a great place just to go and look around. You can go to abuse.ch. You'll see there's a ton of other projects there to check out. Anyways, I downloaded a few here. Actually, some of the samples that I downloaded are very similar to what I cover in the course. But let me just see. I think this is an interesting one. I'm assuming we'll only probably have time for one. You'll download, as you can see here, password protected files. They are using the standard password though, which is infected. All right. So if you're ever in doubt, you get some archive that you think might have malware in it or does have malware in it. That's always the first thing to try, is that guy right there. And again, that makes it pretty safe for handling. Once it's in the VM though, then we're clear to extract it. Now we could talk a lot about, like there's a whole series of steps that happens. There's a lot of tools, and there's a whole a methodology or approach to doing your malware analysis. Usually, where I start when I'm given some artifact is to figure out what I'm actually dealing with. I like Detect It Easy. You'll see that this is a field like many others in cyber that is just built off of the generosity of a lot of great open source projects and folks that are willing to contribute things, their time and their talents for free. Detect It Easy is out there. You can get as part of the Flare VM. You can find the GitHub. I don't know if the source is out there, but the project is out there and the binaries are out there. And what I'm using it for is right here, signatures, right? We talked a little bit about Yara and stuff earlier. It's got its own engine. You can use Yara with it as well. But I want to look for signs of packing and obfuscation. And so we kind of mentioned this chain of events that occurs, but then within each artifact itself, there's usually a sequence of events that occur, and looking for signs of packing of code obfuscation is part of that first step. Now, this one will likely have it, but the important part here that I recognize right off the bat is that it's a .NET binary. And so these are still PE files, but there's just differences in how the PE file format is used to store the .NET code. And the biggest difference is with .NET, if you're not familiar, similar concept to Java, and that it's bytecode. There's an intermediate language, IL or MSIL, CIL, depending on what you're reading and who you're talking to. But it's an intermediate language. So when you take your .NET source and you compile it, you don't have native code that is like raw ones and zeros to be executed directly by the CPU. you've got this bytecode that then the .NET runtime translate at runtime into that machine code. And the cool thing about that is that that allows us to recover. So instead of disassembling back to assembly, we can decompile and we get something that looks like C# or VB.NET, or it's easier to go to like a .NET supported language. DNSpy, this is still the tool. It started as a project. I'm a little out of date here. Yeah, sorry. As a project, it went dormant, and now there is one person who has picked it up and is forked it, and is maintaining it. So if you go looking on GitHub, you'll find it as DNSpy EX. Might have to speculate on what EX stands for, but maybe extended. Cool thing about it is the person working on it is a high schooler. So they're still in primary school, learning how to develop and code and providing a tool that almost all REs use when it comes to malware analysis in .NET. It's going to, as you'll see here, we'll get the decompiled results from this binary. We have a built-in debugger. There's a lot of really cool features. Probably won't have time to go through all of them, but really, really important tool. And it's my go-to. It's not the only one out there. There's other .NET decompilers that you can find and explore. So it comes down to personal preference, but this is a great one. Easy to get started, drag and drop. And now we have, there we go. And now we have this sort of project view of the binary that we're looking at. And so we'll have namespaces, we'll have different classes, we'll have all the methods and properties. And so the goal here is, usually to try to figure out, well, Detected Easy didn't find any obfuscation or didn't identify any sort of code protector as we saw in that signature view. I guess I should have pointed that out or maybe made that a little bit more clear. Let's just do that real quick. And go back here, right? Oh, don't want the zip, want the binary, right click, Detected Easy. And, so I'm looking in here. It still gives us great information. It makes it easy to recognize .NET. It says it was probably written in C#, which I don't know, really doesn't matter. But there's nothing else here. That's what we're missing. If there were a known obfuscator or a protector, it would identify that. And so that could help us maybe with next steps. You might be thinking, what about DE4. Well, if you're not familiar, DE4. Another great project. It's meant to help deobfuscate .NET binaries. It's also gone into an archived or maintained status, and so it hasn't been updated in a while. But it's still one of the best. At least it's worth a shot. I always use it. Let's see, what was the binary C9? And worst case, it doesn't actually do anything. Right? Best case is it detects some unknown obfuscator and it tries to clean up a little bit of the code for you. So we have a new version of the binary. We can take a look at that, but let's start with the original for now. I think this one's actually clean enough where it really isn't that bad. Now this kind of moves us into, like, I could have done additional analysis there. We could have thrown that in a sandbox. Maybe we would have gotten all the answers we needed. We could have maybe seen network communications. Maybe we could have seen additional payloads or something that was produced in memory, and the sandbox was able to apply signatures to that memory, and it says, oh, this is actually malware X, Y, or Z. But when the occasion arises and we do need to actually do a little bit of reversing, this is what it looks like. With .NET binaries, you kind of just assume. I assume if the context is malware and it's .NET, anything really, it's going to have obfuscation, and so it's just a matter of figuring out what that obfuscation is. With .NET, I find that like if we were getting into native code with IDA, I don't always go to the entry point and start there, take this sort of top-down approach. Oftentimes you want to try to figure out and look for clues as to where you should be analyzing and starting your reversing. Again, very contextually dependent based off of what you're seeing, kind of what phase you're at. With .NET, though, you can just right-click and go to the entry point. And that is, much as the name implies, that is the entry point of the program. So this is more times than not going to be where the malware authors or whatever tool they're using started to create this malicious logic, or whatever logic it is that they want. A lot of .NET downloaders, a lot of .NET droppers. So it's common to see them at that phase. It's also common to see malware written in .NET. So it's popular because it's a powerful, easy to develop. I think it cuts the life cycle down versus, if you asked me to write malware, I'd probably say I'd rather write it in C# than C or C++. Although I kind of like C, although I'm not a very good C developer. But anyways, so it's pretty popular. Now we get into this main, and again, like I'm just trying to provide an example. There's a lot of kind of edge cases and nuance, even just in this, looking at this, right? Like where else could code execute? Is it always in main? Well, no, it's not 100% in main. Main is a class, and main has a constructor. The constructor is just the logic that gets called when a class or an object is instantiated or created. So sometimes they use that, and so you have code executing before main because that constructor for this class is being called before the class and its main entry point is being called. So there's always a little bit of, it's hard to cover all of the scenarios here. We can take a look at this. There isn't, like, the obfuscation in this case is sort of twofold. One, we have these, kind of randomish looking class names and different properties, move angles and program, AIO, SN. I don't know if that means something. Sometimes these things mean something like in different languages or like a phonetic pronunciation of it I don't recognize. But our goal is to try to figure it out. And, if at this point, there isn't a lot of code here, right? Like we can explore all the code in this view called the Assembly Explorer. There isn't a lot of code here. And so what I suspect with it, then, it is probably a downloader or a dropper, which means I don't really want to analyze any more of this than I have to. I just want to get to that next stage. That tends to happen towards the end of the functionality, right? If I analyze this enough and I isolate it to say, okay, this is everything this is doing, well, then there might be anti-analysis up above. There's likely going to be a layer of deobfuscation. Like, let's say this is a dropper. That means it already has the next stage embedded within it. Well, then it has to decode that, deobfuscate that in order to use that next stage. And then maybe this is where that next stage is getting executed. And I would suspect that because we have calls like virtual protect, right? So .NET allows interaction with the native Windows API, unmanaged code versus managed code. We talked a little bit about that in the course. But virtual protect is there to change memory protections, and then like call window proc W. Maybe I don't know that. I didn't, the first time I encountered it, I didn't recognize it as a Windows API. So you look it up, MSDN, Microsoft Developer Network, and you'll see that the first argument for call window proc is a function pointer. So function pointers are fun to discover because that means that they're going to point to some code that needs to be executed. And if we look at, again, just sort of eyeballing this, okay, this loads user 32, which is the library that contains the API call window proc W. This is getting the address. So that's saying, let's store window proc W in this int pointer. Int pointer then is used in this get delegate for function pointer. Okay, I don't really want to care about all that, but it looks like, since that's the argument there, that this is probably then our, the variable that represents the call to call, or the method call window proc W. So if we look at that, where that's called, well, then the first argument is this AIOS, this thing right here, this what looks like a byte array or an array. And I only say that because we have this common syntax with our arrays, the little bracket, the access indicator. Jerry, I don't know how much time we have, so tell me. I'm sure you've got a sound effect to like blow a horn or something.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're killing it, dude. No, you're good. Okay. Just keep on going. I mean, yeah, no, I mean, if you can see the Chiron on the bottom, I've dubbed this a stream takeover.
Okay.
No. This is good. People are loving it. I'm loving it. So please continue. I mean, unless you are completed with the demo and you don't have more to show.
I've got, well, I mean, we could spend hours on this. I'm trying to just like give an idea of the type of analysis. And again, why .NET? Well, if that's the thing that you encounter, you've got to analyze .NET. Why not? I was glancing at the questions. Why not Go or Rust? Yes, tons of malware authors will also use Go and Rust for various reasons. And so if you're analyzing something and it ends in a Go binary, you have to analyze the Go binary. So anyways, this gives us some pretty good insight, and that likely this is where the next stage of this thing takes off. And so we can very easily click on AIO, this thing, and you'll see that it is in fact an array of bytes. And we have all these byte values here. The byte array, let me just scroll down a little bit. You'll see it's actually not that long. And the reason that makes sense is because if it were a PE file, it'd be large. If it's maybe a blob of shellcode, it tends to be a little bit smaller. And so that's what I would be suspecting here. You also see this byte array up above, and this is a much shorter array of byte values. Let's see, it's called ALCO. So we can scroll back and we can now try to figure out where this is utilized. Well, I guess we kind of have two choices. Right? If this is in fact shell code, or it's something that's executable, right? Because it's passed as an address, as a function pointer to this method, maybe we just set a breakpoint, we run the program, we see if we get here, we don't encounter any anti-analysis then, and we can inspect the state of things at this point. That might be the easier thing. Maybe we run into some anti-analysis, or we just want to understand a little bit better what's going on. Well, then we start to trace backwards, right? And so now we can look for references of, and there's features in DNSpy, like many reversing tools, to say, okay, show me every place that this thing is referenced and used by. But here we can just highlight it, and we can see delegate function pointer. Let's see. So that's a call to the virtual protect. Okay, so maybe if it is shellcode, it would make sense that if it's a region of memory, the memory has to have the execute permission. So maybe this virtual protect is doing that. 64U, that is the base 10 value. If you look at that in base 16, I don't know if you could see that real well here. That's hex 40. If you don't recognize that, that's just one of those kind of common memory constants that you see, or values that you see used with memory protections for read, write, and execute. So that would make sense. And then the only other place that this is used is right up here in this call to uninitialized builder, right? And so it looks like this is our byte array ALCO. Maybe this is a key. They even call it key in the second instance where they call that function. And if we navigate into here, we'll go, oh yeah, this definitely looks like some sort of decryption or deobfuscation algorithm. In fact, it is a very well-known encryption algorithm. And if you're doing a lot of reversing, there are many ways to detect that. Some of the simpler ones, some of the symmetric ciphers and stuff are a little bit easier to detect by pattern. Important to understand, because you don't want to have to spend time reversing this. If you can look at this and say, oh, this is RC4, which it is, and some of these key scheduling and other core components, core constructors of the algorithm based off of sizes and looping, you could just recognize that. You don't want to have to spend time reversing this, right? And so now we can say, okay, well, we actually know it's RC4. We know there's probably two payloads that are encrypted. We know the key. We can use something like CyberChef to decrypt it. We can just use the binary itself to decrypt it, right? If I recognize this was some sort of encryption, decryption, or deobfuscation, I didn't know what it was, I still probably wouldn't take and spend a lot of time trying to figure that out. I would just go back to where it's called and see what happens after, right? Because that would then be the deobfuscated, decrypted code. So number of things there that we can do. I think let's just try to debug this. We're gonna switch to debug mode. So oftentimes you'll find with doing any sort of even basic analysis that you're gonna rely on static. That is, we're not running the binary and dynamic. That is, we are running the binary. Sandboxes are a great place because it's possible that you do all your analysis. You never have to actually touch the binary, especially if you're using public resources like Triage or AnyRun or VirusTotal. But here we just want to make sure that we're careful. I probably have my network adapter enabled, so I'm going to disable that. I have it enabled because I had the browser open earlier. But we're going to run it, and we just got to take extra precaution. Usually take a snapshot. Like, there's a whole series of things you should kind of go through as a checklist. But tools like DNSpy, like IDAPRO, they allow us to switch from static to dynamic, and even do more advanced dynamic, which would be considered debugging, right? More basic dynamic would be letting a sandbox handle the work. So all we got to do to start debugging, set our breakpoint, right? And setting breakpoints is maybe this deceptively simple, right? There is a little bit of an art to it in that where we set the breakpoint, we're just clicking in the margins here, but we have to be relatively confident that the execution is going to encounter our breakpoint and then actually break. If we're like way into a binary because there's all sorts of obfuscation, we're not really sure, then it becomes a little bit more guesswork. Maybe I'll set a breakpoint, see if it hits. If it doesn't, well, I know flow doesn't go there. So I have to go back and trace backwards into the binary to figure out where the path diverged and how do I get it to go to the direction I want it to. So this is pretty safe though. We're in main. We can hit start. Going to get a little debug program. Worth noting here, the break at. So right now it's not going to break. If we hit go, it's just going to start to run unless we encounter a breakpoint. Some really nice options here. I mentioned those constructors earlier. This is a good option. So it's going to break at the entry point and it's going to break at those module constructors. So if like you're dealing with a really tricky binary, you're not really sure how code is executing because you can't figure it out because it's really convoluted, that's a good option there. It might help you. But let's just say don't break. We'll click OK. And now our view changes a little bit. We have a sleep here. I didn't catch that. Just a short sleep though. And you can see we did in fact get our breakpoint hit. So that's all good. Now, when we look at what's going on in the program, we have our decrypted array of bytes, and we can see that this is about to call whatever that is. And so now I'd be fairly confident that this is in fact a blob of shellcode because it is. Let's see if we can find that shellcode in memory. Sometimes it's not always the easiest thing to do. Debugging, we have a number of windows here. So if you spend any time debugging in DNSpy, take a few minutes, explore all this. I want static fields because there's my array. That was a static member for that class. Up above here, you have all your typical break debugger commands. If you're not familiar with debugging, step in, step out, step over, stop and resume. Step in steps you into function calls. Step over executes the function, but doesn't step you into it. So you don't have to go through all of the things that happen inside that function. Step out, typically, let's see, I think it has it. Yeah, step out will finish executing the function till the return and then allow you to take control again. So we don't want to do actually any of these. All I'm going to do is just expand. Here's our byte array. And if we wanted to analyze this code now, we can just save this. Let's see, right here is a save option. And I'm going to just dump that to the desktop. I'm going to call this unknown.sc or .bin, whatever, doesn't matter as long as you keep track of it. But this should be our deobfuscated shellcode. Now, if you think about execution, right, shellcode is used a lot of times in malware, doesn't necessarily have anything to do with exploitation. We need to know the entry point. Not all shellcode will begin execution at the beginning byte 0, offset 0 of the shellcode. And that's what this statement right here essentially is doing, is it's saying, okay, at index 392 in this array of bytes, that's actually the function pointer. That's actually the entry point. So let's do, I actually created a tool. That's the reason I wanted to do this one. Let's see if I have it in here. SC launcher, I called it because I am not creative when it comes to naming. Yeah, there it is. And the idea behind the tool is that you can take shellcode and wrap it in a PE file. And I did this primarily to get around IDA free. If you've ever tried to analyze shellcode with the free versions of IDA, it won't let you do it. It has to be a PE file. But as I was working on creating this and getting it to wrap shellcode in a PE file, I find that a lot of times it's just way easier to work with shellcode. So we can grab our file. We can tell this tool to create a PE. We can produce an output. I'll just use the standard output file name. And we can adjust the entry point, which is 392. Now I'm forgetting in bytes based on 0 index. Yeah, so if you wanted to use hex, you would just prefix it with 0x. And now what we can do is run the tool, and hopefully we have our shellcode that is wrapped in a PE file. And what's really handy about that is we can now open this with, let's go to our desktop. I guess I lied, Jerry. We are going to get into IDA. All my paths seem to lead to IDA.
IDA is the only one that I ever really like for disassembly. Is the only one I ever messed with. Ghidra came out after I graduated, and I ran away from GRC. We don't rip malware apart very much in GRC.
You don't?
No. I mean, I have a touch of blue, but we just basically run it in any run, depend how bad it is, and then move on to the next, re-imaging or whatever. we don't have time. But yeah. Anyways, IDA Pro, I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Well, so here's IDA. Here's that shellcode. Now it's in a PE file. We adjusted the entry point. So IDA, the PE file has the address of entry that defines where execution will begin. So with our shellcode, IDA knows the address of entry. It knows where to start the disassembly. And you can see all of the sort of telltales of shellcode here. So if you're tired of PE files, but you still want to say native code, look at some shellcode. I'm going to switch the view here. We're going to go from the graph view to the linear view, the disassembly view. This is just using the space bar. And why would it have an offset? Well, maybe because at the beginning of this blob of shellcode, they have strings or other data that it's utilizing. And then that way it can very easily, as it's executing in memory, figure out where it is in memory and then reference those strings. And so you see a lot of the tells here for process injection, memory allocation, getting context for a process that it's going to inject into, resuming a thread. So all of these are very classic process injection, process hollowing. This then, without even looking at the shellcode, I would say is likely the process that's going to be hollowed. And so if you take this artifact and you look at it in a sandbox, you will see the main executable load and run, and then you'll see this reg ASM launch. Well, that's now your hollowed process, and that's got that next stage injected into it. So if we go back to the .NET binary, we have two calls to this decrypt function. All right, and this was our first buffer, which we now know 100% is shellcode. The second, let me just close these windows here. All right, this here's a key. Here's another byte array. This one's a lot longer. So yeah, that's a PE file. Do we have to do all of this? No, like we have it actually decrypted in memory now. We know that it's going to get injected into this hollowed process. But that's just so you can see all of the dots, because it won't always be this, like in a lot of ways, this is a straightforward way of delivering the next stage. But unless you have the understanding of the expertise, you might not be able to quite trace that. The hollowed process, you could dump that process now and you'd have the next stage malware. It might be, in this case, I believe it was just it's an obfuscated binary, but it's not like another stage of downloading or dropping. Like it is the actual malware. But that's kind of fun. So, and you can see also here, just as for typical reversing, there's just a lot of times where you have to bounce back and forth between different formats. You have shellcode is very commonly used. Maybe this .NET binary went from, maybe it was delivered by some script like JScript or VB script, and then it's a .NET binary that loses shellcode to do process hollowing to load another stage. Maybe that's native code now. That's got a packer, so you've got to figure out where, what is it that you're actually trying to accomplish? Where do you need to spend your time? Do you have time to go through all these stages? Usually I don't, unless there's a reason. Like I just can't get things to unravel with the different sandboxes or other dynamic techniques I'm using. I always consider the easy button. Maybe there is an easier way to get to the end result here. And so I always keep that in mind. But that's just a little bit of a teaser there. So that's .NET. They get much more complicated. You just pick a .NET sample, open it up in DNSpy, see what you get, and then you react from there.
Woo! Yeah, no, this is dude, you're killing it. Okay, you're absolutely killing it. Is that the end of the demo, or is there more?
Yeah. I mean, we could go on and on, but
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. Yeah. So that was an amazing demo. So for all of those, what I want to tell you, just so we're all on the same page, Josh. Chat slowed down on people submitting context, but the numbers of attendees stayed static. So literally, you had everybody absolutely enthralled and engaged on that demo. So much to the point that I went off stage just to give you
awesome.
the space to breathe there. Guys, we've been talking with Dr. Josh Stroschein, personal friend. He goes by Cyber Yeti on YouTube. I'm going to bring up all those contents in a minute. I do want to point out how the mod team, who are always supportive and friendly, are trying to wrap their head around how the fact that you and I have the same degree, yet you just walked through a very straightforward malware analysis, and I flip out at people who don't implement multi-factor authentication, and they want some reconciliation here. So much, in fact, that just for the greater community, because the joke is really funny, they said that you and I would team up on projects, and like I would give the presentation and you would, like that kind of workload balance.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess that's the great thing about the PhD process is it at least, at Dakota State, it was a fundamental series of courses, but you had the opportunity to explore what was actually the things that interested you, and try to do your research there and your dissertation. And so I've just always been, I don't know why, I've just always been interested in, I guess, I got into computers young, I got into programming. I've just always enjoyed this side of it. So I've been able to find a way to stay there for the time being. And even at Google, I think you could go terminal with being an IC or independent, contractor, and stay in technical. So we'll see. I don't know what the future holds, but as long as I'm enjoying it, I figure I might as well keep doing it. And if I get money regularly deposited to my account, then
Yeah.
it must be a good direction.
I love it. No, so hey, normally I would end the stream right now, but there are a bunch of questions, various things. Can you just answer this one question, Josh, and then I'm going to share your resources out just one last time so people can consume you in the fullest way. If someone is interested in, like breaking into cyber, or they're in cyber, like maybe they're in GRC and you've changed their heart, and they want to get into malware analysis or reversing, what would you recommend, kind of the first, maybe say 3 steps that they should do?
I have, so again, following the Gerald Auger Simply Cyber model, I decided to create a Discord, and that is 100% the goal, is to provide an opportunity, an area for folks to come and say, I want to learn about malware or reversing, malware analysis, reverse engineering, and it's a place to come. The motto is no question is dumb, because I know that this could be an intimidating field. So it's a great place to go and just ask that kind of question, and you'll get many different perspectives and answers. I would say it depends a little bit on exactly what your end goal is. So I don't know if you have to have that in mind. You might not know, hey, I want to be an Android reverse engineer. I want to be an exploit developer. But just getting into reversing, I think, starts low level. I would say grab some resources on C, grab some resources on assembly, and just start low. Even with AI now and LLMs and great tools like IDA and Ghidra, with decompilers, they're not 100%. And so you'll have a much better appreciation. You'll have better understanding. There's just things that are going to happen low level that you can't get around. So I would start there. Learn a little C, learn a little assembly, x86, maybe 32-bit, maybe 64-bit, because that's going to really help to underpin the whole process. And there's an approach, right? Whether you're looking at .NET or you're looking at native code or you're looking at Android, and there's a reversing methodology that you'll adopt. I would caution, I guess, as a third thing, to not just jump right into malware unless you are a brave person, because any malware that you get is likely going to be riddled with anti-analysis, obfuscation, packing, things that are meant to make your analysis really complicated. So if you wanted to go that route, again, there's a lot of resources out there. I have probably not enough content around that, but there is a number of different playlists on YouTube. I have a couple of repos on GitHub that are just basic C programs that you can compile and then disassemble with IDA or Ghidra or Binary Ninja. And I think that's a great place to start, because then you can compare source. You can see what happens after it was compiled using a tool like IDA, and then you can start to map things and make sense of things. Because at a low level in assembly, when we're just dealing with machine code, there are no if statements, there are no loop structures, there are no objects. It's all just memory and bytes and jumps, and so it can take a little bit to map and understand exactly what's going there when you're used to looking at maybe a switch statement or an if-else if block versus what it looks like in assembly. So, start with some simple programs, reverse, compile them, reverse them, identify things you don't understand, instructions you don't understand, parts about the operating system, maybe, or the process internals you don't understand, and just build from there. Find them. You can find a mentor. That's kind of part what the Discord was for, is that I've tried to be a mentor over the years, but like one-on-one mentorship is so hard for me. It's so time consuming. It just doesn't scale well. And so, you don't have to have a person, but maybe a community or a group, much like you do with yours, to just help you along the way, to bounce questions off when you need help or get stuck. So don't feel like you have to go about it alone. And then, of course, there's educational programs or certifications. I don't have a single cert to my name. Don't know much about them. I'm not saying I'm for or against them. I think everybody can find their own educational paths that fit for them. For some, it's certs. For some, it's formal education. For some, it's just hammering away on stuff on their own. So whatever works for you, but that stuff can help because then it kind of formalizes an approach.
All right, there you go. You heard it. Let's share all these resources Josh was talking about because he listed out a ton of different resources. And I want you to be well aware of all of them. So he did mention the Discord server. If you go to the cyberyeti.com, you can see it right here on stream, thecyberyeti.com. All his socials are right there. The Discord is the Discord guy. You'll go in there and get up on that here. I'm going to do it right now so you can actually see what it looks like. Going to continue to Discord. It's called the Yeti's Den. Very, very early 90s vibes. And I guess I'm in here. Oh my God. The youngs are going to grill me because I don't know.
Holy Discord, Jerry.
I know. I'm embarrassed now. Let's go back. All right. All right. So you've got his, God dang, that happened live on stream. So you've got the Discord where you can get mentoring and community. You've got Josh's YouTube channel, which is probably where I would send you first. Click on the playlist tab right here. Okay. Playlist. Dude, this guy, my friend, okay, Josh, right here. Intro to reversing. No big deal. Skip the intro to web development. You don't need that one. Okay. Mm-hmm. Intro to PE sessions. Ding. Where's the assembly one? I know you got one.
Yeah, it's right there. Bottom right.
Oh, yeah. Learning assembly. Ding. And this is really this is an important one because this is foundational. So you can, when you're looking at IDA, you know what's going on. Do you have one on,
yeah, there's lectures missing. Don't ask. I can't post them. So,
okay. Do you have any on Windows internals?
Yeah, those are kind of scattered throughout, but I would say the one if you actually saw it in that shell code. If you didn't recognize it, then no problem. But typically the PEB, the process environment block, and then parsing PE files. So if you go, I don't know where the playlist is, but I just did one on Lockbit.
Okay. Right here.
Yeah. So that, if you look at that playlist, yeah. So walking the PEB and then maybe, identifying API hashes, how Lockbit uses DLL names. They have a really clever twist on this. But as you're getting into low level, so what is one of the first things a file needs to do, PE file in particular? Well, if it's going to do anything, it's got to interact with the operating system. And largely it's going to do that through libraries, NTDLL. Yep. And so it can do, it's called runtime linking. So instead of having an import table where it has all these libraries and functions that when the operating system loads the binary, it says, oh, you want to call window proc and all that stuff. It does it manually. You actually saw that in .NET. It was resolving that function to call window proc on its own. It does that dynamically. And so that's really important because that's one of the first things you'll typically see a binary doing. And when you're reversing a binary, there's two things I always look for first. Where are the strings? Where are the function calls? So you got to find those. So those will be good. And it goes through in series, starting with some of the basic triage and then moving into, just be careful because it is Lockbit. It is ransomware. So if you grab the binary, you don't need the binary to follow along. But if you grab the binaries, just be really careful because it's ransomware.
Yeah, 100%. So again, I hope you can appreciate that there are hundreds of hours of learning here from Josh. And then if you want to take it to the next level, Josh has 16 courses on Pluralsight. He is a, I guess, classically trained and a lot of hours in the saddle educator. And again, I personally have taken one of Josh's classes or TA'd it. And it's just, you're phenomenal at it, Josh.
Well, thanks, Jerry.
Yep, he's got his YouTube, his Twitter account. You're gonna when he updates, if he's dropping a new course, if he's dropping new knowledge, if he's dropping anything, you can get it for sure. Be made aware on Josh's The Cyber Yeti. It's at JStro, STROSCH. You can see I'm following you already, so no embarrassments there. But yeah, no, it's been good. Final thoughts, Josh. I know we didn't get to everyone's questions, but hopefully you had a great experience. Josh, any final thoughts or anyone before we boogie out of here?
No, just love everything you're doing, Jerry. It's awesome. It seems like just the other day you and I were chatting about you starting your YouTube channel. So it's just been incredible to see the growth and appreciate. I get a lot of people that say, hey, I came over from Simply Cyber. So I really appreciate everything that you do. And just anyone who's, looking to learn reversing and malware, it's not something that happens overnight. Stick with it, be patient with yourself. It's a challenge, but it's rewarding, and so that's what drew me to it. It's like it's like you get to do a CTF for a living and figure out what those binaries are up to. I'd feel remiss if I didn't plug one more thing, but the Flare On Challenge is going on. That's the Flare team's annual CTF. That's really where got me excited getting into RE. You don't necessarily need to compete, but another great learning resource because all of the previous years challenges will have full solutions and walkthroughs. So you can use those previous years, and then this year when it's done, you can use it as a as another learning aid. And I would say you can also kind of use it to compare your skills. So like there's 10, 11, 12, every year varies a little bit, number of challenges. If you get stuck on the first one, well, you got work to do, right? If you can get to the third or fourth, you're doing good. If you can finish the challenge, you're awesome. And so you'll see that they typically get more complex because it's a sequential challenge. So, but don't get discouraged either. If you open that first binary and you're like, I don't know what to do, that's it. That's the value of it. You know where you need to start. So start learning those things.
There you go. The Flare On Challenge. I dropped a link in chat, flare-on.com. All right, guys. Josh Stroschein has been our guest. Dr. Josh Stroschein, great person. I hope you've enjoyed the last hour and 15 minutes of this conversation. If you did miss any, do go back and check it out on replay because Josh was just dropping knowledge bombs all over the place. We did a live demo of a .NET piece of malware. Josh went deep on it and basically ran the train on it, took it over, and absolutely eviscerated it. Pretty straightforward malware analysis in the words of Josh himself. Definitely connect with him on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, all the things, and definitely consume his information. On behalf of the Simply Cyber community, Josh, we want to thank you for being here today. All those in chat right now, thanks for showing up. Thanks for the great questions, and thanks for your attention. I hope you got something from this today, if not a whole bunch of somethings. Thanks to the mod team for supporting the stream and doing all that they normally do in stream. They know what I'm talking about. I'm Jerry from Simply Cyber, y'all. Be good, and until next time, stay secure. Content. Keep the cybersecurity train going by connecting with the other Simply Cyber community resources. We have the Discord server that's lively and always keeps the conversation going. You can connect with me directly on LinkedIn. And also every single weekday morning on the Simply Cyber channel, we're doing live daily cyber threat briefings, 8 a.m. Eastern time, as well as Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We're doing live stream interviews with industry experts, and we produce videos that we push out every Wednesday morning. I'm Jerry from Simply Cyber. I hope you